So I've got this spray stuff that I'm trying out, and I'm gonna put it in my hair. It's something I'm trying out. It's basically lemon juice from the local Safeway and sea salt. It's supposed to lighten your hair up and get it blonder, and also get your hair a little bit curlier, because you know how you like swim in the ocean and then your hair curls from all the salt water. So yeah, I don't know, that's something I'm trying out. So now what we're gonna do is some more work on the Flying V, and I'm just gonna adjust this a little bit more. You can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna zoom this out as much as possible. Yep, zoomed out. Okay. Again, we're just gonna go the long way up. I'm mostly trying to get the edge of this really like worked on, because this is the file to do it with, is to get all this shaped with. So I'm trying to take a little bit of the edge of here off and really get this, you know, done right. So right now I'm using very small strokes, and I'm very lightly doing it. I'm not taking a lot off, but I'm concentrating a high repetition of my strokes in one area. And then this little triangle patch right here, I'm going to try and get rid of and get it all the way down to the seam. Although I don't know if it's possible to do that with this file without damaging the fretboard, so I'm going to be very careful about it. In fact, I might have to use the sandpaper to do that, so I'm going to leave that alone. It's better to resist any impulse to be overly aggressive with the wood, and instead be very, you know, gentle with it. By the way, that's the one. I'm going to just turn the volume down on the mic a little bit so that the wind doesn't pick it up as much. All right, here we go. So it's windy like it was yesterday, but not crazy windy where like before yesterday, man, I thought the awning was gonna blow off. You know, that was kind of nuts. I got a lot done yesterday on the neck, but there's still more to be done today. And then it turns out that all the construction that my parents are doing, they're redoing their bathroom, is going to start on Tuesday. So I thought it was starting on Wednesday, but it's starting Tuesday. So what that means is I'm going to have to get everything together and you know, have all of this done. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get all of the filing and shaping done, and I'm going to start laying on the finish today. So this has to get completely done today in terms of all of the shaping and stuff, and that's fine. It'll just take me a couple of hours. Another like 3-hour video like the Explorer one. And basically do that today, and then lay down my first finish. And then basically when the workers are here during the day, I'm going to put the guitar away. So I'm only going to be able to do one layer a day, and I'm going to do that layer at night. And then while the workers are gone, it will dry overnight, and then first thing in the morning, I'm going to take the guitar and put it back inside, because they're going to be doing work out here, and I don't want them, you know, banging into it or anything. Also, if I'm trying to do finishes during the day, that's not going to work, because there's going to be all this dust and debris in the area. So it's going to be really easy for something to get stuck onto the oil finish, which is not what I would want to have happen. After all this work, to just try and rush through it, that's just a mistake. So this one's going to take a little bit more time to get done, but once it's done, I'm going to be very happy with it. So yeah, this looks good. So what I'm trying to do is just go along the edge of the fretboard a little bit right now and make sure that any rough stuff is off of there. I know that I went over this yesterday with the like 150 grit and that took a lot off, but I do need to do a teeny bit more shaping work. I did the 150 just to take some of the hair off of this. I'm still trying to get this part shaped right. You didn't see this part when I was working on the Explorer. You only saw the already sculpted neck, not the actual shaping of the neck like I'm doing right now. So I sculpted the neck and then I went ahead and polished it down, and that was like 3 hours in and of itself. So this is also very time consuming and is just a part of the process, you know. But you haven't seen this part yet, and this is the part that's probably the most time consuming because you got to go bloody slow. It's like small little strokes, small little strokes to just really get the effect you're looking for. So right now, while I'm filming this, my computer is rendering the files from the first few videos. So day one, the 3-hour video that we were just talking about is rendering right now on my computer, and that's going to get done, and then when that's done, that will go up and that will start a new playlist, and this will be all in the same playlist. You know, the Explorer, the Flying V, and then hopefully the custom build from the parts guitar, the parts caster. Well, it's actually a parts telly. It's like a weird telecaster thing. I don't know. Telecaster. You know, I really don't want to hit this anymore with the file. I think it's time to move on to the next grit. So I'm gonna just hang this guy up and I'm gonna get all my sandpaper together. Okay. See how this goes. I want to start off with my 60 grit, wherever the hell I put that. Should be around here. What is this? That's 80. I'm pretty sure I have 60. I might only have 80 though. Yeah, it looks like I have 80. Okay, well that's fine. I'll use 80. 80 is good enough. Well, let me double check. Let's not be lazy. Double check to make sure I don't. So that's 80. That's 120. That's 80. Damn. I do have 60 somewhere. Hang on. Oh, yep, I do have 60 right here. Knew it. I knew it. I'm just being lazy. Don't be lazy. There we go. There's my 60. And you know what? I think I have a piece already torn off that I think I can actually reuse. Let's see. Yep, there it is. There's the 60. It's got a bunch of crap on it. Okay, I'm gonna get a new piece of 60. Well, that didn't work very well. God damn it. Well, whatever. So I'm going to use the 60 to buff out this corner, which means this is going to take a very long time. Notice how I got my arm always through the V. It's like if I don't have my arm through the V, I'm going to drop this thing. It can just slide out of your hands. So, a little history about the Flying V. It was a 3-part series. It was the Flying V, the Explorer, and the Modern. And the Modern never really went into production, and probably for good reason. It's not a very attractive looking guitar. But the guy who made the Firebird car, like the literal Firebird car, was the guy who designed the V and the Explorer. So Gibson was like, we want a guitar for the future and we want it to look modern and unique. The guy's like, all right, and he made the Explorer and the Flying V, and the Flying V was the most popular of them, and the Explorer was also really popular. Not as popular until the 80s when, you know, Metallica started using them. And that's kind of where the whole modern guitar shape thing came from. Because like prior to that, Les Paul had made, you know, the actual Les Paul shape, and it was very classic sort of design aesthetic for a Les Paul shape body. It was designed to compete with Fender. But the Mustang or not the Mustang, the Flying V and the Explorer were designed to be completely unique and like unrivaled guitars. And for that reason alone, they're, you know, to this day, just very interesting and dynamic guitars. And they started a legacy, man. Like, God, how many people have played Flying Vs? You know, Albert King, Jimi Hendrix had a Flying V. Just, you know, it's a really cool instrument. Randy Rhoads played a special version of a V made by Jackson, Grover Jackson, who eventually got bought out by Fender, so Fender owns Jackson. So if you're buying a Jackson guitar, you are in essence buying a Fender brand instrument, even though it's technically the Jackson logo. It's all owned by Fender. So yeah, and then so yeah, there's the King V, the Randy Rhoads V. There's all kinds of like, you know, offset versions. So like now I have to lay it flat, and now I don't have to worry about putting my arm through it. So like here I'm just trying to like round it out. But yeah, anyway, so there's a ton of shapes, dynamic shapes. I think the company that kind of took the spirit that Gibson, you know, started with and took it the furthest was BC Rich. They kind of took it to an extreme where they started making things like the Warlock and stuff like that. But the BC Rich also did the Mockingbird, and I gotta say, I really like Mockingbirds. I've always wanted to own a neck-through Mockingbird. I think those instruments are phenomenal. They're severely underrated and underappreciated in my opinion. They look fucking badass. So yeah, maybe one day I'll own a Mockingbird and I'll be working on a neck-through Mockingbird, and then you'll all think I'm really fucking crazy, you know, shaving a neck-through Mockingbird. You know, Keenan's gone off the deep end. But yeah, I really dig those guitars. I think they're really unique, and they have like a characteristic to them that no other company really emulated except BC Rich. And like Jackson kind of did. Jackson came out with the Warrior, if I remember correctly, and Ibanez has an Iceman. So like, generally speaking, every company has like one odd-shaped guitar that's like, you know, really modern and kind of like abstract in design to be aggressive looking. So yeah, I'm just gonna take this piece of 60 grit, and you can see the rough edge where the file was kind of like digging in with its teeth and making the finish uneven. And now I'm gonna create like a seamless sort of line by just hitting it with this and sort of buffing it out, which means that I'm gonna have to take the finish back a little bit more than what I initially anticipated, but it's gonna be marginal. And trying to line things up with the file is never gonna work perfectly. You do have to go in with the sandpaper and do it by hand. This is a very labor intensive sort of job, and you have to be willing to put in, that effort. But the better it comes out, the more motivated I feel. And the more motivated I feel, the more effort I put into it, and then, you know, thereby it gets better. So it's a sort of self-empowering cycle. You know, positive feedback loop, as they call it. And again, really long strokes. And that is the secret to doing this right. So you don't want to do too much with the 60 grit because the 60 grit is ridiculously rough. And I'm ready to now move on to the 80 grit. It's like the less you do with the low grits, the better. You want to just you want to shape your modification as best as you can. Actually, that needs a little bit more 60 right there. You want to shape your modification as best as you can, as quickly as possible, and then you want to stop. The sooner you get up in grits, the sooner you get away from taking huge amounts off of the guitar, and you're not going to overwear the guitar. Right now I'm going a little bit back and forth because certain things still need a little bit more work, but that's a lot better. In fact, I'm going to take another step back and just do something really quick. So you don't want to go fast with the file, and you don't want to go fast with the grit, but if you can move up in grits quickly, that's good. And what that means is not like making fast movements or whatever, but like doing what you need, doing the least amount with the lower grits as necessary to achieve the maximum amount of effort and result from your efforts, the maximum result from your efforts. And it's kind of like a lazy philosophy, but it's actually one of the most valuable ones because less is more in this case. You can't put this wood back once you've gotten rid of it, so you really have to be careful about how you taper things. So like I just finished that with the file, and I had to really like hit that with the file to get it to round out the way I wanted it to. It was kind of like squaring off, which is going to be really uncomfortable when your hand gets up there. So like, you want to see how this is round over here. You want this to also be round, but you want it to have a different radius. So like, you want this to be round like the edge of a circle, but you want this to have a different radius than this. And that's really what you're talking about, the arc of the circle. So this has a much wider radius than this. So it appears to be flatter, but it's still round. And I'm gonna buff it with the 60 again to get it round. And so I used the file to kind of shape it into that initial round, damn it, that round shape. And now I'm using the file again because certain parts of it aren't really cooperating. And now I'm going back to the 60, and I'll go back and forth a little bit, but I want to get as far away from that file as possible, and I want to get as far away from the 60 as possible, and really get into the 150 range with my grit. And I think that's finally where it needs to be. Now I'm going to taper out the 60 grit, because I just used the 60 grit really intensely in one area, and I need to sort of like balance it out. There we go. Okay, that's much better. Now I'm gonna get the 80, and now I think I'm ready for it. It just needed a little bit more to blend. It just wasn't quite there yet. So don't be afraid to go back and grit, but just make sure that you're really being conservative about it. So like every time you pick up a new grit, you can be a little bit liberal, and you can use it because you're really trying to polish out the scratches you put in previously, and that does take a lot of work. So like I'm being pretty aggressive with this 80 grit right now because I know that I just did a lot of work with a file and some 60, and I got a lot to polish out and get smooth. But when I get done with this 80 and I start trying to move to my 120, if I have to go back and do anything with the 80 again, I'm going to try and be very conservative. And then when I get done with the 80, 120, I'll be moving on to 120, 150, and then I'll be, you know, conservative with the 120 and more liberal with the 150. That's really nice right there. This is really nice. So like this tapered out really well. It's exactly what I wanted out of a taper around here. This is exactly the way I want it. I got the radius where it needed to be. It's much better. It's much better. I didn't have to aggressively hog it out. I just, you know, worked at it very slowly, and then it came together. You're gonna have to put a lot of oil around the seam as usual, but it's gonna look very nice. It's gonna feel nice. It's gonna look nice. You know, feel good, look good. Yeah. Let's get that finish off so we can nice uniform. right, there we go. That's actually really nice. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get out the 120. And again, I'm gonna be conservative. If I have to go back to the 80, I'm gonna be conservative with it, but I'm gonna try and just go to the 120 wherever I've got that in this mess of sandpaper. It's a 220, that's definitely not it. 320, 80, that's the wet sand. There's 120. Grab some 120. There we go. So actually I'm going to lay this flat for starters. I'm really going to try and clean up this line now. So the line that divides the old finish from the new finish, I really want to make that super clean. Okay, good. I got another 7 minutes before I got to reset the camera. Basically, in the first video, there's a couple of spots where you can't see me at all because the camera times out at 20 minutes. So my Nikon is a D3300, and I don't know why, but the engineers decided to put in a 20-minute limit to how long you can shoot. Now you can do a firmware mod on the camera, but you're liable to damage the camera when you do that. So I'm looking to eventually upgrade to a higher quality camera and move away from my D3300 to something better. And if that's going to be the case, then I'll be moving into a camera that won't have a goddamn 20-minute frickin' timer. What the hell, man? 20-minute timer. It's like, who the hell thought of that? I don't know. There's probably some like limit that's causing that to happen, but you would think it would just run indefinitely until it ran out of memory or something like that. But I don't know. 20 minutes is the limit. God knows why. So I work with that limit, and you know, sometimes I make mistakes and I forget, start rambling, ranting too much. Oh shit, you know, 30 minutes went by and I only filmed 20 of it, you know? That happens, not the end of the world. This 120 is coming out really nice. I don't think I need to go backwards. I'm just gonna really polish this 120 and move on to the 180. This is really coming out nice. I am gonna get all this done and probably lay my first coat on today before the evening, and then get a second coat on in the evening. So I might be able to get 2 coats today. I'll try and do 3 coats tomorrow, and then 1 coat on Tuesday evening and have it done, because I did 6 on the Explorer. So if I do 2 today, 3 tomorrow, 1 Tuesday, that should be another 6, and you know, 6 was enough for the Explorer, so let's assume that it'll be the same here. Also, sometimes the sandpaper gets clogged, like right here it's clogged and it's not going to sand anything there. I can flick it out, some of it will come off, but a lot of it's just residue, and that's fine, it's just kind of caked on there. So you got to rotate the piece of paper you're working on. So yeah, looks like I'm down to my last 19 minutes on this camera chip, so I might have to switch cards, which is actually kind of surprising, but I guess I haven't cleared everything off of here yet, so maybe it's not as surprising as I think. I did put together like 4 hours of video content yesterday, and I'm pretty sure that all those raw files are still on this chip, so that's probably what's eating up the memory. I'll have to like go through the camera playback menu and delete a few things or something like that. All right, I think that's good for the 120. Let's get on to the 150. I'm just kind of ripping through this. I'm kind of like impressed and a little inspired. I'm getting through a lot of work today, and I'm getting through it in a surprisingly fast rate of time. Let's see here, that's 100. Definitely not what I'm using. Looking for the 150, 180. I know I got it somewhere. Oh, here's 180. Okay, that's one. Oh, and here's 150. I got them both. Perfect. So right now I'm actually doing more layers on this than what I did on the Explorer, which is kind of funny. But this one's probably going to come out a little bit better. But it doesn't really matter too much. I did enough layers on the Explorer. Basically, the more grits you use when you work on sanding something, the smoother it comes out. There's like an old saying, you know, be a good Southerner and don't skip your grits. I don't know, man. I heard that one at an old wood shop. Some old guy told me that. I thought it was kind of funny. Some people might be offended by it. I don't know. The point is, don't skip your grits on your sanding paper. In case you didn't know, grits are like some kind of southern food. I don't know. Something they eat in the South. Grits. Shit if I know. I'm an idiot Northern California kid. Cali kid. There's probably like 1 million people shaking their heads right now. I'd be lucky if there was 1 million people shaking their heads right now, because that'd mean I'd have 1 million viewers. Man, this is like beautiful. So the thing about your grits is if you skip them, you can't polish out other problems. Go back to the 120 for a second. So like, I definitely scuffed up the side of this fretboard, probably worse than on the Explorer, but that's not the end of the world. You know, it is going to be sealed, but if I want to try and polish a little bit of it out, like I am right now, I have to hit it with a higher grit and then go back to the lower grits. And that'll take the edge off of some of it. The lower grits aren't strong enough to take the edge off of it. That's basically the issue. But the lower grits will smoothen out the rougher side. It's just the scratches will still be there because the scratches are pretty deep. And the lower grits aren't strong enough to get all the way to the bottom of the scratch and buff it out. Basically, if you want to get rid of a scratch, you have to remove layers of wood until you've gotten to the bottom of the scratch and have basically excavated it. Or you fill the scratch. That's kind of how it goes. And I'm not going to fill the scratch because that's just bad for wood. I mean, you can get wood putty and do stuff like that if you crack something, but we don't have that problem. So we're just going to avoid doing that. So that's it for the 150. Now it's time to do the 180. So yeah, we're actually just hammering away through this. I'm really happy about this. Which one is this? This is the 150 again. I know I have a sheet of 180. It's blue, or is it yellow? It's either blue or yellow. God damn it, I wish it just said on the frickin' paper. I think it's this stuff. I'm pretty sure it's this stuff. It just doesn't say anywhere on here. Oh wow, that's 400. Yeah, that stuff's super fine. We'll get to that stuff later on though. That's 150. Here's the 180. Yep, this is 180 right here. Don't need a big piece. Like I said, if you've got somebody in your life who's very creative and likes making things, sandpaper is always a good gift. That's if they've got like a guitar or something and you're like, here's some sandpaper, modify your guitar. They might look at you and think you're crazy, but it's actually a really good gift. Sandpaper is kind of expensive. You don't really think about it when you're like, you know, going to the store like, oh, I'm gonna go buy some sandpaper, and then you buy a bunch of sanding supplies and you're like, shit, that was $100, you know. And then, so it's a really good gift actually, getting somebody like some True Oil, some sanding paper, a few sanding blocks like, and some sanding pads like these guys. And not like sanding blocks, the ones you mount the sandpaper to, but literal blocks of sandpaper. So yeah, those are really good gifts for somebody who's creative, you know. It's like, hey, I like reading books, and you know, I don't know, I like to sail. Hey, here's some sandpaper. You know, you got like somebody in your life who likes to sail or, you know, read books. You're like, here, have some sandpaper. It's like, God damn it, what the hell am I gonna do with this bloody sandpaper? You know, got to get it for the right person. But for the right person, sandpaper is always a good gift. It's like you can never go wrong buying an artist a paintbrush. You know, you may not be able to get them the right paper or the right paints, but you really can't go wrong with a paintbrush or like some gum arabic or like any number of other things. All right, there we go. That looks nice. Feels great. Holy crap, that feels awesome. Okay, that was the 180. Might actually buff a little bit of the fretboard with this. Hang on. Yeah, I gotta buff this out. Nice. Cool. Okay, so that's the 180. I think it goes to 220 now. Okay, this is 220. Yeah, that'll work. Got a couple more minutes before I got to reset. Ah, crap. That looks good. Sorry I haven't been talking much right now. I've been in my own thoughts for a second or two. Sometimes that happens when I work. Kind of just go in my own little world. It's kind of the best part of actually doing this kind of work is you just get to disappear for a minute. You know, it's kind of nice. Everything goes away. There's a bunch of noise going on around you, but you're able to ignore it and you're just in your own little bubble working. Really nice and relaxing, to be honest with you. That 220 really did it. That's phenomenal. All right guys, and we're back. So I had to clear out a bunch of old files to make room, but now we're back. And we are working again. Cool. That's really close to it. Let's just really dig in right there. Yeah. Okay. That's it for the 220. We are done with 220. Okay. What do I have next after 220? Jeez, I'm like getting up there really fast. Didn't expect to get this much done today. That's the 180. This is 2000 wet sand. Yeah, not quite ready for that. I think that this is actually ready for the block, because this is also really smooth. And now after this, it's like, basically it says after this, I have to go into the finish, so I might be finishing this next. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I think we have a finished neck. Well, polished neck. Now it has to be actually finished, but you get the point. This is pretty much ready to go. I can't think of anything else. Yeah, man, I'm stoked. I'm thinking about hitting this with a little bit of TSP, but I really don't think it needs any. There's nothing on here And I just did this today, so there's literally no reason to think I need TSP on this. Part of the reason why I TSP'd the Explorer is because I worked on that neck, the initial like shaving of the neck and sculpting it about 3 weeks ago. So it like sat out in open exposed air for 3 weeks before I actually got around to finishing it, like sanding it down and putting the first layer of true oil, the true oil on it. So because I waited so long, I really did need to hit it with TSP just to make sure there wasn't any crap in there. I actually don't think I need to do that with this one because it's really smooth, it's super clean. I kept my hands pretty clean while working on this. There's definitely like some sawdust in here that I'll have to like figure out how to like extract, but for the most part there's always going to be sawdust when you're sanding wood. That's just, it's a byproduct. It's like, you know, get over it. Anyway, so got to do some of that, get it fixed up, get it going, and then it'll be ready. And then we're going to do some other stuff on this guitar to finish it up and give it like a really cool effect. I wrote on the back of this guitar actually the lyrics to Stairway to Heaven, the last verse, and if you listen very hard, you know, that whole section. So I think what I'm going to do actually with this area where I'm polishing it with the steel wool, I'm going to keep hitting it with the steel wool and lighten it up a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a Dremel router and I'm going to etch those words into the back of this guitar the same way I etched into my Mustang. I think it's a really cool effect. I think it just looks badass. Otherwise, what I will do is just polish the crap out of this like I am right now, take the edge off of the finish, and then maybe write it by hand and then seal that. But if I write it by hand, it's not as cool. It doesn't look as unique, you know. One of the things I like hitting this with steel wool, one of the things I like about that is that it gives it like a really worn in look. It really takes the edge off of this stain. And on one hand, like, it's kind of a cheap stain because like it just comes off so easily, and on the other hand I'm like kind of grateful that it's a cheap stain because I can actually like do this creative process and kind of work with the wood because they so poorly and cheaply stained it over at the Gibson factory. I can't goddamn believe Gibson went so fucking far downhill. They just goddamn nosedive, man. I still can't believe that. They were the brand of guitar. Like, let me tell you, man, Gibson was the brand of guitar, and now they're just like a joke. But yeah, just gonna keep buffing this for a minute, getting it lighter, giving it that character I like. You know, this is my guitar. I'm gonna do the hell I want with it, because I'm only going to live once and then I'm going to goddamn die. So I'm going to bloody well enjoy whatever the hell it is I decide to engage with. You know, maybe that's a little bit childish and narcissistic, but, you know, I am going to die. So I'm going to try and enjoy my time and enjoy the work that I get to do in my life. That's why I'm not going to be an English teacher, and instead I'm going to do special ed, because I actually like special ed. Really relaxed. It's super chill. Probably the best job I've ever had in my entire life. Oh, did I just cut myself? That's the thing about steel wool, is like, it is rough. And it will dig into your fingers if you're not careful. So what I'm doing is I'm lightening up the center and I'm keeping the edge is darker, and it's giving it a kind of burst effect, which is really cool, because like generally if you buy a burst colored guitar, you're gonna spend $500 more. So for like a bag of $20 steel wool and a bit of elbow grease, it's like you're making your own DIY silver burst. Because this is all they do. They paint the damn thing and then they just rub it down. And it's like, oh, $500. Frickin' Gibson. Bloody expensive. So yeah, if you just want to get that burst finish and you don't want to pay somebody for it, you just do it yourself. You just get that steel wool, and if you have any clear coat on your guitar, you got to remove that. But you've just got a regular stain finish like I do here. You just hit it with the steel wool and it'll come off nicely. You just got to do it evenly though, and you got to take your time with it. The more time you take with it, the better it comes out. And with something like this, you always want to take your time. The more time you take, the more worthwhile it's going to be. If you try and rush it, it's going to look like crap. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing with the heel of my hand into here, and that's to take the initial layer off, and then I'm going to go in circles afterwards. So do the hard pressure just to take the finish off, but then you got to buff it out, otherwise it'll look scratched. So you are kind of scratching it to take it out, but then you're going to buff out those scratches a little bit. So it's a weird sort of back and forth process. Wax on, wax off, you know. Nice circles, hard pressure. Nice circles, hard pressure. Back and forth. The more time you take, the better it comes out. That looks freaking awesome. Look at that. See, so now I gotta buff it. But you can definitely see that down here it's lighter and that's darker, and you can definitely see the difference. Now, just gotta buff it. So now you're doing really nice and light circles, just super light circles. And you're just working around it with super, super light circles, super light, clean circles. Nice, light, super friendly. What you're trying to do is, as the steel wool digs in, it makes lines in the finish where it was pressed in really deeply to extract the satin sort of stain. And so what you're doing is you're buffing out those lines so that it doesn't look like there's a bunch of linear scratches in your guitar. So you put the pressure down, which takes the finish off, and then you do these circles to ease up any scarring that might be on the instrument. So that's kind of how that goes. And then anywhere where you want to make it a little bit lighter again, you just kind of go back, apply pressure, and then you buff it out again. And you just keep going in circles like this. So remember, you got to go in circles very light around the edge, because you're not trying to remove the edge of the finish. You're trying to remove the center of the finish. If you remove the edge, you screw the whole thing up. So you want to be really brutal in the center and really gentle on the edge. So nice, soft circles on the edge. Just move very quickly. Move, move, move. Don't stay in one place. Move, move, move. Don't ever stay in one place. Just move in nice, fast circles. And then when you're done, beat the crap out of that center. Really get in there and goddamn dig in and work that crap out. Make it look good. Really dig into the crap. Dig into the son of a gun. Come on. Come on. Dig into it. Alright. And that's what a little elbow grease will do for you. And then go back. Nice light circles. Nice light circles. Nice light circles. Yeah. Yeah, that's sexy. Woo! That is a sexy looking guitar. and it looks kind of aged and worn out. And that, my friends, is how you relic a guitar without having to spend a ridiculous amount of money on it. So now that that side's done, we're going to do the wings. And what we're going to do for the front is I'm actually going to leave the front alone because there's pickups in here, and pickups are magnetic and steel wool is steel, right? So it's a really bad idea to do anything with steel wool around the pickups, and I mean like a goddamn terrible idea. You will destroy your pickups. So like, you know, do your steel wool stuff on the sides and on the back, and just leave the front alone. And what you'll do is you'll remove the front, you'll remove it, and do all your work there. But that won't happen until after I finish sealing this neck. So I'm just kind of wasting time right now. Really, I should be sealing the neck and letting it dry outside, but I'm kind of doing this just because I think it's cool, and I want to commit to finishing this in a sort of relict manner. So I want this one to look relict. So if I do the sides and the back, I'll have to come back and finish the front. You know, it's kind of like finish what you start, right? So I can't finish it right now because I got other stuff to do on the neck, and I have to go for a run and clean up my room a bit and get some other stuff going. And then when the computer is done rendering my current project file, I have like 3 other project files to render. So I have to set those all up, and then I have to start uploading. So I got like a million goddamn things to do. And then I got to edit a bunch of photos for my client, and then start laying out the next set of designs. We got a party next week. I got to reach out to people and tell them like, hey, I want you to bring a fruit salad. I want you to bring, you know, garlic bread, and, you know, why don't you bring some wine, and so on and so forth. We're going to do some cool stuff like that. Yeah, man, that looks great. Hey, Guinness. Hey there, buddy. My hands are dirty as hell. But yeah. Alright, I'm going to pause this for a second. Alright, guys, we're back. Damn, man. That steel wool is digging into my finger. It's alright, though. So yesterday I was practicing some Hendrix. I had a chance to sit down and look at some Little Wing, and my God, I love that song. I don't know why it took me so long to get into Hendrix. I guess it was something that I was intimidated by because he's such a big icon. I always avoided his songs because I felt like, I don't know, they'd be really difficult. But I finally like got it together, and I really sat down and looked at Little Wing, and I really enjoyed working on that song. I got through the first page of it through Guitar Pro, and I'm going to go back and work on that. And then I'm going to go back and work on some Led Zeppelin, Over the Hills and Far Away. So that and the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff, and a little bit of Mastodon as well. The song Mega Loaded On by Mastodon. So check it out. See, now the side is kind of relict as well. And now we're going to do the other side. And then we'll do the back end of the neck, and we'll seal the whole neck in one go, which is going to look really freaking badass. I gotta just move that out of the way. So yeah, I'm super stoked. So I wrote on here in Sharpie because I was planning on etching into this guitar, and I still plan on doing that. I just have to get the router together. So when we decide to go forward with that phase of this decorative process, I will go to the metal shop that I used to hang out with and talk to Ed and Gerard, and I will borrow probably their little hand Dremel. It's a really nice one, and I will etch into here. But the thing I want to etch into here on the back is the Stairway to Heaven lyrics, and then on the sides there's a thing from the song Mine Riot by Soundgarden. I'm Luck's last match struck in the pouring down rain. I love Chris Cornell, and I'm totally going to put a Chris Cornell quote on this guitar along with the Led Zeppelin quote, because that's just so badass. And then, yeah, you know, go back and learn some more Zapp. You know, Over the Hills, Far Away, Whole Lot of Love, Heartbreaker, Nobody's Fault But Mine, bunch of Zeppelin. I'm going to go through that. I think that's one of the things that I'm lucky for, is I have the ability to do the things that I enjoy in my life, and it's largely because I've been afforded a lot of support from my family, and I'm grateful for that. And also, this job working at Trace is offering me a lot of opportunity because, well, ultimately what's going on is it's giving me the ability to work with these kids and do a good job of helping them out. But it's also giving me the ability to make like a steady income so that I can also do this crazy art stuff on the side and have a good time about it, you know. It's one of those things that I really enjoy, is, you know, having the ability to do art and music, and having a day job that affords me that opportunity is really amazing. And I'm very grateful for it. You know, it's something that I'm very, very grateful for, because ultimately it means that I have a shot at doing all of this crazy art stuff and actually being able to take it seriously, because I got a day job that will afford me the opportunity to do this. I will be able to make a living. I won't totally be killing myself doing it, and I will have enough money left over to continue supporting myself while I endeavor in these projects. So I'm really grateful for that, actually. So now I'm just doing the inside of the V. I'm just getting the inner legs done. Now just circle it out. Circles it out. And you can see the wood grain coming through again. So the scratches come in and they look like they're damaging the grain. And then you go back and you do the circles, and the scratches go away and the grain comes back. Because it's steel wool. It's not going to go very deep into the wood. But that's okay. Alright. Awkward as hell. It's a big ass Flying V. Get this finish out. God damn, this takes a lot of elbow grease. I'm lucky that this finish is so cheap. I mean, on one hand, it's disappointing because Gibson used to be one of the best guitar manufacturers, and the fact that their finish is so goddamn thin and cheap, it's like kind of disappointing. And on the other hand, I'm like grateful that it's actually cheap, because I'm trying to take the finish out. If you're buying a Gibson and you want to just leave it as is, you know, I'd look for a model from the mid-90s, because that's when they still had their factory operations, I think, at Kalamazoo, which was in like Tennessee or something like that. But those guitars are way better made than any of the other stuff that's started coming out in the thousands. So I don't know. There's stuff from their old Kalamazoo factory. Basically anything like 80s, 90s is going to be good quality built. anything from the thousands onwards, pretty much crap. And since it's 2019, you know, 20 years of just consistently producing crap, you know, that'll definitely run your business into the ground. So I'm not surprised that Gibson went $2 billion in debt and we're filing for bankruptcy. It's like, I mean, I'm disappointed in it, but I'm not really surprised by it. I'm actually surprised that it took this long for that to finally happen, considering like it had been going on so long and people had been complaining about them for so long. You think, you know, they would have course corrected and just said, oh, I guess we gotta stop producing bullshit robot guitars and start actually going back to manufacturing good, solid instruments. You know, maybe we should lower our prices, or like really push Epiphone as a brand. Also, the stores where they sell Gibsons are traps. Dude, Guitar Center is such a trap. Like, everybody's like, oh, I'm gonna work at Guitar Center, you know. Every wannabe, like, rock star guitarist, oh, I'm gonna work at Guitar Center. Dude, Guitar Center is such a trap. You don't want to work there. You never want to work at a place like that. It's the best way to get chewed up, ground out, and spit out. And I know because I had a friend who worked there for 7 years, was a manager there. I had another friend who worked there for like 3 years and then left. You know, I know a lot of people. I hardly know anybody who lasts. And the people who do last, they don't like it. They just, you know, they're stuck. They're not doing anything else with themselves when they're just stuck. I know a lot of guys who are stuck. They're not happy. You don't ever want to get stuck. Yeah, and that's why I'm grateful for my job. Ah, shit, I'm tired and that was a lot of work. Well, all right, my hands are completely red. My hands are painted red with blood. Not really. With the blood of guitars. Yeah, let's see here. Let me do a little bit of work on the neck. The steel wool, get some of this crap off of it. Cool. All right. I am now going to hit this with the True Oil. I got to clean up my hands though, and I'll see you guys in about 10 minutes, all right? Hey guys, this is Keenan, and we're back for more from the TheAcidDrip. All right, so what we got right here is our brush again, and we're gonna get all this going with the finish. And I'm just gonna set it off to the side a little bit. I got it kind of resting over here. And got my True Oil right there. So we're gonna just get on with it. In fact, I'm actually gonna rotate this before we get started. Yeah, like so. Oh, come on. There we go. So I'm trying to keep the foam again away from the area where the finish is going to be done, and just keep it, you know, very separate. All right, there's still some steel wool scraps on here, so I'm going to brush it down lightly to get rid of all the steel wool that might be sticking into the wood fibers. And then once that's all said and done, and you know, it's, in fact, I'm going to do that right now. Once all of this is good, make sure there's no steel wool on here. Steel wool. Get everything off. Now what I'm going to do is go back and I'm going to hit this with some oil finish. Make sure that everything is off of here. Yeah, okay, that's good. So I'm going to hit this with the wood oil, the Murphy's oil soap, and we'll see what that does to restore the finish. And then after I hit it with some Murphy's oil soap, I will probably be hitting this with at least one layer of true oil. Not too much, just a little bit to try and protect it. It is a very porous finish after all. Come on, you jerk. God, this cap. There we go. All right, and let's get started. Got my paper towel right here. So we're just gonna, yeah, this is just gonna suck it all up because this is the first layer, so the wood is very thirsty and dry. I'm gonna get a lot in this crevice right here because my hand is gonna pretty much be centrally located there, and so it'll be very easy for that to get greasy. Also, I'm gonna get a little bit of this on the fretboard side. And I'm just gonna take the edge of the finish off. So I'm gonna put it on there and just soak it up with the paper towel as I go, so it doesn't saturate it too much. Okay. And that should just about do that. And then, shit, I just got, keep that off. Okay, now we got it. Ah, god damn it. Son of a gun. Okay. A lot of problems right now with all the magnetic shavings. It's the problem with using steel wool on a guitar. It's very likely that I will have to hand clean the pickups on here. I should have taped them down. I didn't think about that. So if you're going to use steel wool on a guitar, I guess the lesson learned is tape the pickups so that the steel wool doesn't leave the fibers on there. So I have it flipped upside down so that the pickups are now facing downward. And if obviously gravity is pulling down, so all the steel wool that's on the body of the guitar fell off of it. But the stuff that was next to the pickups fell down, but instead of falling off of the body of the guitar, it fell down and then got grabbed by the little magnetic heads of the pickups, and now all of this steel wool fuzz is hanging off of my guitar. So in order to fix that, I think what I'm going to have to do is take the pick guard off and just polish the pickups with a little piece of sandpaper, like 220 grit, something that won't mess up the actual pickup, but something that will take all the steel wool off. You know, something like that, something kind of rough. Also, I rubbed all the finish off of the back of the neck, so I'm going to put some oil on both sides of the neck to sort of freshen this up. And then we will be good. And again, this guitar has a very porous finish, so it's just sucking up all the oil very quickly, just sucking it all up, and that's, you know, okay. That's somewhat expected. You just have to, you know, work with that. So what I'm doing is I'm brushing the finish in. Like I'm not just leaving the finish on top, I'm actually like using the brush to push in the finish because I really want it to get in there. And the advantage of doing that is it really like, it gets everything off of the surface that really doesn't need to be there. And it forces like whatever is present to very much penetrate the wood. And the advantage of that is you get like a better quality finish. At least in my opinion, because the finish really sinks in where it's supposed to be and it deeply penetrates. And instead of the finish being left resting on top to slowly sink in because you push it in with the brush, because of that, there's less chance for crap to get stuck to the top of the finish. Okay, so that's all right for that. Let me show you what I'm talking about for the pickups. So I got a bunch of it off. I'm gonna refocus this. So right here, you can kind of see some of that dust that I'm talking about. I'm getting it off with my finger and there it all is. I can kind of like brush some of it off, but it's getting stuck. Some of it I can get off, but a lot of it is getting stuck. So I'm gonna hit this with a little bit of sandpaper to get that crap off. I gotta physically take the pick guard off to do that. So I will do that after the neck is done being finished. So for now, I'm gonna just let the neck dry. A little bit more on over here. Sure it's nice and even and it goes over the seam. Make sure the seams are covered by the finish as well. Actually, because I pushed so much of the finish in, this looks pretty dry already, just because of like how porous this wood is. I think I'm gonna put some more in. Also, I gotta refocus this. There we go. Apologies for that. Gotta get some wood glue for this stand to fix it. So I'm gonna go to Home Depot and fix it so that the next time I'm doing this, it's not shifting on me. Right now it's moving a lot and I don't like that. So I'm really trying to saturate these seams so that the guitar kind of holds together. Yep, see, that's the thing. It's kind of messed up. I gotta glue that down. Basically, I nailed it in from the underside and it popped off of the nails. So now I have to like put glue on it and try and get it to bind. The nails will kind of like hold it up in place while it's binding to the glue, and then I'll put like another block around it so that it has something else holding it on, anchoring to it, and then that should keep that in check. So bad. right, and we should be just about good with this. I'm going to just touch up a little bit here, and that should be about it. Yep, that does it. Just take that edge off. Alright. That's really good. All right. I'm Keenan Fry. This is the Acid Drip, and I will see you later tonight when I am dealing with all this and working on the pick guard. See you guys later. This is the Acid Drip.